Hello, my name is Jen Riley. I am an educational consultant with the Kentucky Department of Education. Thank you for attending the Early Childhood Regional Training Center's webcast series. Today's session is titled Teaching Social and Emotional Skills Here, There, and Everywhere. At this time, I will hand over the presentation to Penny Nutter of Anderson RTC and Jessica Hart of the Berea RTC.
Hello, everyone. I'm Penny Nutter, and my co-presenter, like just been said, is Jessica Hart. I'm going to start out our presentation today, and as was mentioned, it's called Teaching Social and Emotional Skills Here, There, and Everywhere. The reason why Jessica and I picked this title is because you probably have been teaching here, there, and everywhere. You've probably been teaching in the classroom. You've probably been teaching kids at home, and you've probably been teaching a combination of those two. So today we wanted to provide you resources for teaching the social emotional skills while transitioning to hybrid, or if you're right in the middle of hybrid, and if you're transitioning back to classroom, pulling all those kids back in. So I'm going to start out with the hybrid model. The best place I think to get great resources for teaching social emotional skills is challengingbehavior.org. And as you can see on this page, I've picked a couple. Actually, I've got several slides that I'm going to show you of some resources that you can get for free and download. The first one on this page is called Wearing Mask, which it's recommended that preschoolers don't wear masks, but I know in some of our districts there are times of the day when they decided that children do wear masks, maybe in the hall or at different places. So this is a social story book that you can print out to help kids understand about wearing masks and the importance of it. Also, if you're teaching kids at home and they're going out with their parents, this may be a helpful tool for you to use. The second tool on this page is greetings, but it's greetings in a social distance kind of way. So you can use these in the classroom when kids are coming in, but you could also use these in the hybrid model when you're teaching kids at home as well. The next page, I've included a couple of resources here. That first one is reconnecting after a break. And we know that if kids start at school and then they went home to a distant learning and now they've come back, you're probably going to have to go over some things with them to get that routine back in place. So, here are just some ideas on what you should focus on. That second one is helping children understand emotions when you're wearing masks. Probably the adults in the classroom are wearing masks, and maybe even while you're talking with kids at home, you're having to wear a mask if you are in a place where other adults are around you. And this just helps you work within that realm of teaching emotions while your mouth is covered. So that's a great resource for you to use. The next one is more for administrators, but it's just some ideas that you can download and use. It's called a reopening program. So if you've been doing remote or a hybrid and you're getting ready to bring those kiddos back in, just some ideas and things to keep in mind when you're starting to reopen that classroom. And the last resource from the challengingbehavior.org I want to share with you is this little questionnaire. And typically in preschool, at the beginning of a school year, we do a questionnaire to find out what's going on with our children at their home. Like, what are their routines? What are their fears? What kind of things soothe them? What do I need to know? So, we may need to think about that as we're teaching remotely and if we're doing a hybrid model, like what has the child been upset about? Are there things that this pandemic we need to know about as it relates to your child? Have they been listening to the news? Are they scared? So this is just some things to think about. You can print this off. You may want to make your own. You may want to use what you typically use at the beginning of the year, or you may want to tweak that a little bit. But I thought this was a great idea. We may need to get to know our kids again if they've been away from the classroom from a while. As thinking about your curriculums that we use to teach social emotional skills, I thought about the websites. And one social emotional curriculum that a lot of our preschool classrooms use is called Second Step. And I thought, well, I'm going to get on their website and see what they have. And I was excited to learn that in addition to just the way we straight teach the curriculum during a typical year, they also had tips for teaching it remote, and they had a hybrid model, like if you're teaching children in the classroom and if you're teaching some at home. So make sure you check with your curriculum website. They may have some ideas to help you during this time. Another social emotional curriculum or enhancement to curriculum that a lot of our program use is conscious discipline. They also have free resources related to COVID-19 that you can print out and use, or that parents could print out and use. There was social stories like coronavirus is a big word. When we all come together again, you can print out their visuals about safety reminders for kids, and then some things that are really relatable to conscious discipline, like "We Wish You Well" board, how you can use that in the pandemic. But I really like that very first visual that is on the slide. What does social distancing look like? Because 6 feet apart is probably pretty abstract for preschoolers. And these visuals just kind of give examples of what 6 feet apart look like so that kids can see a more concrete image of what 6 feet apart would look like. Also, if you're worried about decisions that your district are making, and you want to make sure that you are a voice for developmentally appropriate practice, make sure you check out NACI resources. And if you're making decisions, you can go to that web page and pick like what is developmentally appropriate in the time of COVID. They also have several articles about social emotional teaching during this time as well. We also want to think about children with unique needs. The first link there, I was thinking about, man, I wonder what it's going to be like for our children with autism during this time. And I found this article that gives you 7 support strategies to use for working with children with autism during this time. The second link, this is just one example, but it's conscious discipline for families where English may not be their first language or the language that's spoken the most in their home. So go to your websites like Conscious Discipline, Second Steps, any other social emotional enhancements that you use. They probably have resources in Spanish and English, and a lot of them are now adding other languages as well. And then that last link is actually from a KDE, from the KDE website, and it's a fact sheet for teaching remotely, geared to children with significant disabilities. And the last thing I want to talk about as we deal with resources is if you're using a social emotional screener or assessment, and you're really concerned if you're teaching a hybrid model or if you're teaching remotely and you're worried about, is this reliable? Am I doing this the correct way? On the website, typically they have some tips for you, and almost instructions and directions on how to do that during a hybrid model. I know that DECA does. That's the one I've got here. So make sure you check the website and see what the screener or assessment tool advises you to do during this time. And now I want to talk about, before I hand it over to Jessica, I want to talk about and give you a couple of teaching strategies to think about if you're in a hybrid model and we really want to keep all those kids connected to each other. That's going to be kind of hard, but I'm just going to give you some strategies to think about. So we've got those kids at home and we've got kids in the classroom, and it's going to be hard to make them feel like they're all together. I know the other day, my grandson, he had to be quarantined for a while, and he was watching his class online, and he was at home, and at the end they all said goodbye to him and his face lit up, and I thought, man, that's really important that they feel like they're together in this time. So here are just some things to think about. Is there a way that you could do some group times together? Can you use some media to make that happen? Can you use classroom display items to help children feel connected to each other? Can you use classroom projects? Again, can you use that media and the technology that you have to help the kids stay connected to each other? Can you use social stories to help them connect? And can you use social stories that would help children learn the social emotional skills, which is kind of what our focus is today? So let's say that you are working on social skills and your lesson is on developing friendships skills. Could you do a small presentation about each child in the class, showing a picture of each one and talking about them? So your classroom's made up half of kids at school and half of kids at home. Make sure you include all of them, and you could tell a little story about each of them and give everyone some information so they know a little bit of something about each child. You could add a picture of each child to a class mural as you talk about them. So you could have a picture of your classroom blown up, and you could place the kids, a little picture of the kids inside that classroom so that they see that even though some of us are home, we're all in this classroom together. You could show a visual tour of the classroom and talk about what their friends are doing there. So for the kids that are home, they could see like, oh, when I come back, I could play there, or maybe they won't get to come back this year, but they could see what their friends do in that classroom, so they get the idea of what goes on inside a preschool room. You could read a book about friends and talk about making friends using names of classmates and how you do that through a hybrid year. Sing a song about friends and let each child wave to a friend online. Refer to the children as friends. And typically preschool teachers do this, but this year is probably more important than any other year that we call each other friends. And we know that maybe because Sally's at home, she's still our friend. She's still part of this group and part of our classroom. And then a puppet show. You could have a puppet one being sad because they want to play with Mike, but Mike can't be in the classroom right now. And maybe the teacher talks to the puppet and says, well, what could we do? We can't play with Mike. Could we make him a note? Could we go over and talk with him on the computer? And just some of those ideas. And then let's talk about emotional skills. And let's say that your lesson is on naming emotions. You could create a classroom book where each child shows emotion. And then you could read that to the kids in the classroom, and then you could read that virtually to the kids that are home. Again, create a classroom display and have that up, and have each child, the ones in the classroom, the ones at home, showing the emotion, and put that up on a board and refer to that all throughout the year. Have children show emotions across the room. So this is a year that we're doing social distancing, and we could show them how that we can still show that we're happy we're 6 feet apart, but we can show our friend we're happy. We can show our friend we're sad. You could show a video from a child at home making faces to show children at school and vice versa. And this is a good idea if you can do a group together where you've got the kids at home and you've got some kids at school. Make sure that the kids at home have the same materials that the kids at school have. So let's say that you're doing a match game with emotions. Make sure that the kids at home have that same set of pictures so that they're doing the same thing that their friends in the classroom are doing as well. Hey, I'm going to hand it over to Jessica now.
Okay, so I'm going to talk about as you get back more into the classroom. So whether you have all your kids in the classroom or you have most of your kids in the classroom, you only have a few at home, I'm going to kind of focus on that. But I also want to make sure that we keep that home connection. One of the, I guess you could say one of the best things that has come of this is that we've been able to make good home connections, or we're finding ways to make better home connections than we have in the past. And so we want to keep that going even when our kids are mostly back in the classroom. So I found this article, and it's called the key calm yourself to help children get into the executive state. So you have to get yourself to a certain spot in order to get, our kids there. But through this, it actually outlines some really great ways that not only we need to do, but how we can do this with our kids. And so I'm just going to kind of run through these and talk to you about what that might look like in your classroom and how you can connect that to kiddos at home as well. So the first one is following the advice of experts. So just making sure that we're being that example, right? We're keeping our social distance, we're washing our hands, we're wearing our masks, those kind of things. And talking to our kids about what that looks like and how we do that in our classroom, and how they need to continue to do that at home. YouTube has gazillions of clips that you can look at, and there are some really great ones that show what does this look like? How does that, how can I make that happen for you as a teacher, but also to show your kids as well. The second one goes along with a lot of what Penny was talking about with that emotion. So making sure that we notice and label those emotions. Kids are hearing a lot of different things about how people are feeling. They're probably hearing more than they should about how people are feeling. So we need to make sure that we take time, and we know the importance of teaching what emotion is and what it looks like and how to express that appropriately. But it's also important to take a minute and say, how are you really feeling about this? I would guess that a lot of times that's not often happening at home, that mom and dad are talking, or, grandma and papa are talking about how they feel about all this, but they're not taking time to say, how's this make you feel? So taking a minute and talking to our kids about how they feel, and showing them that, hey, I have some of those feelings too. And, letting them see that it's okay to have those feelings and that we're all dealing with this in different ways, and showing them, if you're upset about something, expressing that in an appropriate way so they see that you get frustrated too. Accepting anxiety is one of your many emotions. This has been a very much a thing that we don't really know what's coming next. We don't know how it's going to look, when it's going to stop, it causes a lot of anxiety. And our kids they're feeling that anxiety from their family at home, and then they're coming into a school situation where that anxiety is probably continuing. So helping our kids understand what that word means, because they probably are hearing it a lot. This little video was really great. I loved how it explained exactly what anxiety is, but in very kid-friendly terms. It didn't go into it, in such a depth that they didn't need to hear about, but it really helped them understand, that people deal with this in different ways. It looks different, but this is how it might look, and helping them understand that they may have those feelings too, or when somebody says that word, that it's not, helping them see what that really means versus, hearing that word and not understanding that. And then also just accepting that for you as an adult, accepting that this is an emotion that I'm going to have to deal with throughout all of this right now. Then the next one was keeping it in perspective and noticing the good. There's a lot that we could get sucked into of how devastating this might be, or why I can't do it this way, and I just want to go back to how it used to be, and things like that. And that's not going to get us anywhere, right? So we need to keep it in perspective. We need to understand that there are things that we can't do, and recognize those, but not dwell on it so much. Do notice the good that is coming from that. Just like I said at the beginning of my part, we've been able to make better connections with families throughout this. We've found different ways to do that. And so we don't want to lose that. We want to continue to do that. So, taking time to create kindness trees, remembering your 5-to-1 ratio with positive feedback, making sure that for every one negative interaction that you potentially have, you have 5 positive ones to go around that. And not just positive praise, right? So there are other things that are considered positive feedback. Just spending time with a kid is positive feedback. Just sitting and listening to them, reading a story with them, that can be positive feedback. That's positive input to them. Making sure to use their name. I know this is one thing that always stuck with me. I had a pastor actually one time tell me that, when you're at Kroger or whatever and you're checking out, and, they all have a name tag on. And so when they ask you how you're doing, you say, oh, hi, Joe, I'm doing great, and you respond with their name, how that makes them feel. And I've had people do that to me, and it's amazing how much more personal and how much more I get out of it when somebody uses my actual name. So making sure to do that with our kids, getting down on their level, giving them appropriate physical contact, and thinking about how can I, in order to keep that connection with home, how can I encourage families to do this? So maybe I give them a different way to provide positive feedback in each of those newsletters that we send out to our parents. We talk about that, spend 5 minutes a day reading, or spend 5 minutes a day just talking to your kid about whatever's been going on, those kind of things. Giving them ideas on actually how to do that. Direct your attention or practice to mindfulness. So, we have things like the solution kit. If you have been to some of our trainings, we've given you that. There's different solutions. And so actually using that as a solution kit. And so thinking, this is the problem going on, which one of these might work, and being mindful of that, and when you hear that going on, taking time to do that, and not just solving the problem outright, and making sure to stay in the moment. I think this is probably a really difficult one for us right now, because we have kids in our classroom that we're dealing with. We have kids at home that we're dealing with. We have families. We have our own families. We have, the different things that we need to do with masks and social. We have a lot to think about. But when those kids are in your classroom, or when you're online with those kids, you really need to be as much in the moment as possible, because that's going to build that better relationship, and we're all going to have better outcomes from that. Encourage our kids to continue along with that, practice breathing. You need to practice these breathing things just as much as we need to encourage our kids to do that. So using things like challengebehavior.org, they have the picture there, smell the flower, breathe the pinwheel, or we did smell the flower, blow out the candle. Conscious discipline has lots of different breathing techniques, teaching those, sending those home with parents so they can understand what those look like. And then I've always really enjoyed Elmo's Belly Breathe song. I love the way they do it. It's a good way. We know that songs stick with kids and can really teach them things. So it's a nice little way. And just singing that song is going to help you calm down, in my opinion, just because it's Elmo. And along with that, as I was looking at the Belly Breathe, I found this that was really great. It's the Sesame Street Caring for Each Other. So it's on YouTube, but you can also get it on sesamestreet.org. And they're videos that are specific to the things that our kids have been dealing with these past 6-9 months. So one of the examples is that Rosita is using the belly breathing because she's frustrated that she has to stay inside all the time. And, I'm really sad that I can't go outside. And, she talks about that. She goes through belly breathe. And then she even talks about, you know what, I'm going to go have a video play date with Elmo, because even though we can't get together, we're still going to get together. So it's really great how they have translated that to see, so kids can see what it looks like right now. So again, you can use these in your classroom. You can encourage families to look at these at home, but it just helps the kids see that, even their favorite characters have to do this too. Reaching out to others. This is one that is super important right now, making sure that, we reach out and get help from other folks. There's just like this, it's a resource for you all to find more information, that just getting out there and finding that and asking for help with that. But also taking time to meet as a team, whether that's the team that's in your specific classroom, whether that's, your preschool staff team, your school team, whatever it happens to be, making time to meet with them and go over those things and how we're going to do that and what it's going to look like, and getting more information out there, from out there. Taking time to practice gratitude. Like I said earlier, we can get really sucked into the different negative impacts of this, but we want to make sure that we practice. So we have to be more mindful, right? And we have to practice gratitude a little bit more. So creating thankful walls, that's one of the things that I actually recently started with my little one. Is every morning, we talk about what do we want to do today? What are the things that we want to try to accomplish? What do we need help accomplishing? And then at the end of the day, we talk about what went well and, what are we thankful for today? And so it's a little bit more mindful about talking about those things. So ending the day with a review of what went well, so the kids are not going home upset about what didn't work. And then the we care boxes for a classroom, or creating these potentially for individual kids, and sending them home so they have those, to help care for their families, or help care for those kids in the classroom that have things like Band-Aids or get well cards or blank notes, or things that they can do, that when they see a friend not feeling well, they can make that, or there's different virtual ways to do that as well. The next one is being awed by nature. So it talks about the human brain being a really amazing thing. And we know that this has been, again, a very unprecedented time, and we're learning lots of things. A lot of our kids are dealing with even more, our kids that are already in traumatic situations are dealing with even more traumatic situations. Kids that were kind of on the borderline are probably now in that traumatic situation. So understanding that, and understanding what that looks like in the brain, but also remembering that the brain can overcome these things. There are ways that we can help our kids do that. And so taking time to help them, what, you can do this, and we're going to figure it out together, and working through that, especially for yourself as well, as, yeah, this has been tough, but I'm going to move through this, and we're going to find a way to get there. Being active. This is one of the things that, unfortunately, I think in some families, because they're stuck at home, they're not as active. They have, even in general, we know that our kids are on tablets or on watching TV more often. So finding ways to encourage them to be more active when they're in the classroom, but also, when they get home. And so there's a few resources there about different, Conscious Discipline has some different chants and songs and things. Challenge Behavior has some ideas on ways to get moving, and even ways to get moving in a social distancing way. And remember, for you as a teacher, as a mom or a dad or a parent, or caring for your parents, whatever it is, you have to make sure you keep that balance. Self-care is incredibly important right now, and you can't, just like they tell you every time you get on the airplane, you can't take care of the kids in your classroom if you don't take care of you first. And understanding that's not a selfish thing, that you have to do that. And so making sure that you balance that well, that you don't let work and those kind of things outweigh your personal life, but also that you don't let your personal life outweigh your work sometimes, because there are ways to tip the other way. So just making sure we find ways to keep that balance. And if you need help, reaching out, figuring out how I can do that. on the resilienteducator.com, they have resources specifically for educators on how to deal with that, specifically with this COVID-19. And they also have things for families and children to do that as well. So that's a really great resource to look at for yourself as well as your kids and your families. Know when to reach out for help. So knowing when I can't balance that anymore, or when I feel like I don't know how to help this child, or whatever it happens to be that is the thing that you go, I don't know what else to do. Remember, you have people out there that are here for you. Each of your RTCs are here. We're ready for you. We can help you in any way possible. We'll find a way around it. And don't forget your people at KDE. They're there for you too. Reach out and ask us for information, and we're going to give you the best that we can and help you get through it. And just remember that, as Dr. Seuss always tells us, unless someone like you cares a whole awful lot, nothing is going to get better. It's not. So remember to care about this and know that this is important and that you guys are doing great work, and we want to continue to help you with that.